Hello and welcome to another episode of the Autoblog podcast. I'm Greg Migliori. Joining me today on the phones from the West Coast is West Coast editor James Riswick. What's going on, man?
Oh, I'm just, frankly, it's not that different for me. I always work from home. So to make it a little different for myself, I've decided to record this from my car in the garage today. Just figured, hey, normally I listen to podcasts in the car. Why not record a podcast in the car?
Road test editor Zach Palmer joins us. Where are you recording yours? Probably from part of your house, I would assume.
Yeah, I'm just in the bedroom. Not anywhere nearly as interesting as James. You're probably in the passenger seat of your BMW, I'm guessing there.
I am. The unmovable steering column makes putting my laptop on my lap a little difficult.
Yeah, I know. It's a little cold out right now to be recording in our garage. I think I would be a bit chilly out there for a whole hour podcast at this point.
It is. I was just outside. I let my dog out for a little bit. She'll be getting a walk in maybe a couple hours here. But it's starting to get really nice here in Michigan. So this is when I think it's going to get pretty tough for sort of the lockdown. I know the state officials say you're allowed to go outside for exercise and stuff like that, but it's about like 55 and sunny, so it's starting to finally feel like spring. Anyways, we got a great show for you today. We're going to talk about the Mazda6, the Lexus UX Hybrid, Honda CR-V, and Riswick's old BMW, which, like we said, is doubling as his studio space. I'll hit on some news pieces here, what's going on, just how the coronavirus is affecting the industry. We're just going to kind of do like a lightning round, talk on whatever comes to mind, then also talk about maybe this is like the time for virtual dealers. You're not really recommended to go out in groups of, multiple people. So how do you buy a car? So we're going to kind of discuss that. I, for one, would welcome a virtual dealership experience. I know Cadillac's worked on that a little bit, but we'll see. Maybe it'll become more widespread. We have a great Spend My Money, Alfred on Twitter. Doesn't that kind of sound like Ask Jeeves? Remember that old search engine, Alfred on Twitter? Is that even a real person, yes. Alfred on Twitter?
Oh man, how different would the world be had it been Ask Jeeves that caught on instead of Google?
I would love to be optimized for Ask Jeeves. That would be amazing.
Just doesn't have the right ring to it.
Yeah, it really doesn't. But hey, all right. On any note, let's talk about what we've been driving. Let's see. The Mazda6 is a beautiful sedan. It's, I think it's definitely one of the style makers in that segment. I think it was you, Zach. You drove this. Was this before you went to New Orleans? And
no, this was actually way after.
Okay. All sense of time is gone for me. So whenever you drove
Monday.
It, earlier in March, I guess, or late February, what'd you think?
I actually, it was just picked up from my house a few days ago.
Okay.
Actually, it's one that I've been living with for the full week. As we transition to reviewing cars a little bit differently around here, having a car for a full week as opposed to just a couple nights here or there. So I got to spend more time with this one than I normally would in a lot of press cars. And I've spent time in the Mazda6 before, but I hadn't actually driven one with the 2.5 liter turbo that this one has in it. So the one that I had specifically was the signature trim. So that is the full-on fancy pants, as expensive and nice as it gets inside and outside. And like I said before, it also has the turbocharged 4-cylinder. So like before, the driving dynamics on this thing, it's right up there with the Accord as absolute best in segment for midsize sedans. It really doesn't get much more fun than this one or the Accord with the 2-liter turbo. You can get the manual in the Accord, no manual with the Mazda6 here in this guise, but still plenty of power. The engine, it's powerful, it's torquey. The high end isn't exactly there like it is in an Accord. It's more of a low down, you're really getting to back and forth the traffic lights really quickly. Lots of torque, from like about 1700 RPM and up. You have all the power in the world that you'd want in that kind of a car. And, being in our somewhat quarantine time, I decided to take it for a drive out onto some back roads and have some fun with it too. And just like my experience in a non-turbo Mazda 6, this thing handles really, really well. It's right there with the Accord, super flat, great steering. It really is, one of the enthusiast sedans of choice, that you can buy out there. And it's pretty reasonable too at 36 grand. I wrote a big piece about how much I love the interior, that you'll probably see on Autoblog.com soon. It's full of very nice feeling Napa leather, suede everywhere, really, really great controls, just very luxurious for the price. It really punches above its weight there. And, that's one thing that the Mazda does that a lot of other, even super expensive non-luxury sedans don't do. Even when you fully load up a new Sonata or the Accord, it's not quite as luxurious as the Mazda. So, those are really the high points. That super luxurious interior, great driving dynamics. That engine it's good. I don't think it's great. I still think that the Honda Turbo is better, but overall, it's, if you're looking for a daily driver, that you want a decent sized back seat in, it's hard to go wrong with the Mazda 6. It's about as good as it gets in that segment.
It's a handsome devil for sure. Go ahead, James.
I had that car about a year and a half ago, and I had it back to back with the Accord and the Camry, and they were pretty much all similarly equipped. The Accord was the touring rather than the sport. However, I did find that the 6 was in fact the more engaging car over the Accord. I also agree that the turbo engine in the Accord is better than Mazda's. It's just the Mazda's a little unrefined, a little coarse in its sound. It's not as smooth as Honda's, let alone the V6 that you can get in the Camry. The interior really is lovely in that car. Unfortunately, it has the old Mazda infotainment system, which got old really quickly. It was fine, and then everyone else just greatly surpassed it. And the new one in the Mazda 3 and in the CX-30 is excellent, but it's a pretty big gap there. Hopefully, Mazda manages to put that new system into the 6, and far more importantly, its volume-selling CX-5, because that's really holding that car back. But yeah, the quality in that is a clear step up. Mazda is trying to be sort of premium, kind of luxury adjacent brand, kind of like Volkswagen used to be in the late 90s to the thousands, and they abandoned that. And I think that's a good thing for them to be. They're always going to be a niche manufacturer and going for, okay, we're going to be sporty, we're going to be for drivers, but hey, let's go for this premium feel as well. They certainly do a better job of it than Buick, the other one that tries to be like that. I'd say that Mazda 3 or the Mazda 6 looks more interesting and has a nicer interior than like an Acura. So yeah, I very much agree. It's not as big as the Accord and the Camry. I actually went on a road trip with my parents and my wife, and we all had stuff in the back, and it was pretty much full. We'd have a lot more space in the Accord. But then again, the Accord's almost like a full-size sedan now. So, let's keep things in perspective on that front.
I think I agree with what you guys are saying. And I think I enjoy the 6 more than I enjoy the Camry. It's just, there's so many, like there's the parts of it that are really passionate, if you will, like the design and the way you drive, or the way you feel when you drive it. I think that definitely, those are strong selling points. They really dial into sort of their enthusiast audience really well. I will say this though, for people who maybe aren't as like enthusiast oriented, the Accord, the Camry, they certainly offer a lot of different, elements. The Camry's huge. I drove that. I was going over to my parents' house actually a few weekends back. This was, I would forget when we had this in the fleet, Zach, you might remember. It's might even been January. I put like I could not believe the things I got in the trunk. Like literally like 10 like these plastic ubiquitous cases that you get at Costco and things like that. I mean, that car is just huge. It's like, the capability there is really impressive.
And the Accord's even bigger.
Yeah.
than the Camry.
It's funny too. As much as I do like the Mazda6 design, I might like the Accord a little bit better. And that's really tight for me because I really like how the Accord looks.
I agree.
It's a really good looking car.
I think especially in sport trim, the Accord is probably the handsomest midsize sedan out there. Even with the fancy wheels and grille in the Mazda6 Signature, I still like the looks of the Accord better.
Cool. So how'd you like the looks of the Lexus UX Hybrid that we had a while back, maybe a couple weeks back? That was in the Detroit fleet. It's kind of a wild color, if I recall.
Yeah, so that one I'm a bit more milquetoast on the design. I think it's original, it's unique, but I'm not sold. If they were to eliminate, the giant blocky wheel coverings and all the black cladding and all that, I think it would look really good because it's small, it's low, it's very angled hatchback design, but they cross over it all up, because that's what people want these days, and I understand, but when you look at some of the crossovers like the Cayenne that doesn't have the huge black cladding, they actually look really great. So
I do wonder though if you get it on smaller ones though, like UX or the CX-30, they'll just look like hatchbacks if you don't put the token stuff, and people don't want that.
People don't want that. I want that.
It's a cute little hatchback for sure.
Yeah. I think it's really color dependent. What color was yours?
Ours was the green.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
The very, very deep, nice green. It's the same hue that they offer on that LC500 Inspiration series, actually.
Yeah, I had that. I think I had that, and I had the orange one. And in the colors, I think that car looks a lot better. I remember seeing it. The first time I saw it was at an auto show and was silver, and I just thought it was ghastly. It just had such a visceral, like, yuck reaction. And when the car came in and it was painted something, I didn't feel as strongly about it. At least it's the big honking Lexus grill on it, which remains polarizing. I still have friends go, ugh, I can't deal with that. It is more integrated into the design than the earlier efforts.
I like polarizing design because, I mean, when you figure if you're going to buy a car, it usually comes down to you like how it looks or you don't. If you're just buying a car and you're like, whatever on the design, I realize that's how probably a lot of people do buy cars. They take this sort of like down the middle, like moderate approach to buying their cars, especially when you're not maybe a hardcore enthusiast. You're like, I could live with the design. It's good price, good fuel economy. I could put my car seat in it. Donezo. But if you are buying something for design, and that's basically the only way I've ever really bought a car, frankly, is based on design, be polarizing. I mean, if you don't like the Lexus, go get an Audi or an Acura or something else, a BMW. Just keep right on walking. This is totally polarizing. I think it works as a hatchback. Doesn't really work as a crossover, just sort of speaking like abstractly as the design, just because it's like, it's a hatch, but it's also lifted, but they've got this like cladding stuff going on, but it's also got this like small footprint. So whatever. I mean, that's maybe irrespective of nothing or something. It's, it's so creased. The grill is like, this like blowfish or pout fish kind of in your face. So there's a lot going on there. For me, I liked it, but I could certainly see how it's really easy to look at that and be like, no, thank you. But I thought it drove pretty well too. I think the hybrid is the most interesting UX to drive. It's
because the base one is slow.
yeah. I mean, the
It's a
hybrid makes it
Corolla.
fun. Yeah.
I mean, the Corolla powertrain is actually pretty good when it's in a Corolla. When it's in a Lexus, no, not so much.
Yeah.
39 combined MPG though. I mean, for the UX hybrid 250.
No, for the hybrid.
no,
That's pretty solid.
I mean, for the hybrid, the base versus the base engine.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the UX, it's comfortable like a Lexus. It handles better than a lot of Lexus actually.
Yeah.
It feels good around corners. In the F Sport version, you have the little fake engine noise. That one really could confounded me, like why they did that. It's just like they try and simulate shifts, and it has a CVT, and it makes all of these engine noises even when you're running on electric power only. So, but if you're just using it to commute in, you're getting great mileage, and seats are super comfortable.
Seats are really good.
What I come to expect with any Lexus.
There's a real, and it has a genuine Lexus quality interior too. It gets a little cheap in the back seat, but the front, Lexus interiors, the god awful remote touch thing notwithstanding, they're really beautiful. They're really well made, and they look cool. I'm a big fan of them, and the UX is one of them. It definitely feels and looks more special than a lot of the other things in that tiny price range, that tiny segment.
Yeah, and it has the strange and unique volume knob there, where you're toggling through it, on the actual center console area.
Oh yeah.
The horizontal switcher.
Yeah.
Pretty strange location for things.
Not a fan of that.
I might get used to it. I just one night it's weird, and but maybe over time I like that some cars that actually place an actual knob there, like the Mazda6 we were talking about earlier has the actual volume knob right there next to the gear lever, and it's a nice place to just let your hand fall to. So perhaps over time, you'd get used to that in the UX.
That's been a long stand. Audi was the first to do that, I think.
Yeah.
With the MMI volume knob right next to the shifter and all those other controls. And Mazda system really is just like reimagining the Audi MMI. And they still use it, yet Audi doesn't. But
cool. So speaking of car interiors, what did you think of the CR-V's interior, James? You were in one of those recently. It's a pretty nice interior, if I recall. I don't know. What did you think of it, actually? I don't recall too well.
I had that back-to-back with the new RAV4.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I had the RAV4 TRD Off-Road, and then I had the CR-V Touring. So they're not really comparable trim levels. A couple of updates for 2020 for the Accord. The center console has an integrated wireless charging pad. However, it's only on that Touring trim level. And they just really kind of plop it on there. And you lose the bin that is in all the other ones. Frankly, I kind of like the interior of the RAV4 better. I think they tried a little harder. It's a very cohesive look. I think the materials are really excellent. At the same time, it's also very functional, which is the RAV4 wasn't before. It had this really bizarre center console. The new one, sizable bins, more useful thing for your smartphone for either wireless charging, which is more broadly available in the RAV4 than in the CR-V. And the other thing that this CR-V Touring had this wood trim all over. And you look at it in photos and it looks okay, but if you look at it in person, it's so very obviously plastic. And I like the fact that the RAV4 doesn't do that in any of its trim levels, even the fanciest XLE. It doesn't bother with fake trim. They just kind of use color And I think that's really kind of like the bits and pieces, colored stitching, colored rubber pads in their bins. So like it uses that to create different environments. And I think that's ultimately more successful because sure, wood trim, that's fancy, but if it's fake, then no, it's not fancy. You're just putting on airs. The RAV4 is a little more honest in that respect, and I kind of appreciated that. So I on the other hand, the Honda does have a vastly superior engine, the turbocharged engine, excellent acceleration and fuel economy for the segment. The acceleration, obviously is greatly outdone by anything with a engine upgrade, be it a V6 or a turbocharged four-cylinder. The space in the CRV is exceptional. RAV4 is close, as I discovered, but still the CRV is a functionality champ. And also, since we've been talking about design a lot, I did kind of like this kind of pale blue color that the CRV came with, a little more distinctive, kind of a rich looking color. It went nicely with the kind of smokier taillights that have been introduced for 2020. So, yeah, what I thought of the 2020 CRV.
Nice.
We actually had a CRV in the office, I want to say about a month ago, and it was the updated one for 2020. My biggest gripe with it was, they updated a few tech things on the interior, but the infotainment is still the old Honda infotainment. It's not the new software that you can get on the Accord, or I believe the new Passport has it as well. And that's
no, Passport's still old. Sorry.
Passport's still old?
Yeah, it is. I think it's even worse than CRVs. Yeah.
Man. But
actually,
sorry.
Go on.
I was just, this is like your biggest volume seller. And the Accord's infotainment, I think is a big step up from the slightly older Honda infotainments. And it just seemed like a bit of a missed opportunity to not update that along with the rest of the car, slightly different exterior look. But no, I agree with pretty much everything you said there, James. Super functional, super huge interior, great powertrain. Still not a huge fan of the actual looks of the CRV. It's a bit blocky and chunky-ish and bloated, especially in the front for me. But, that comes with the territory of being big. So,
Well, the other thing, talk about technology, is although it doesn't have the latest infotainment tech, it does have the upgraded driving tech stuff. So this has newer, like the Passports and the Pilots and the Civics, they are bad. They are kind of clueless, dumb adaptive cruise control systems, false alarms all over the place. This one is far better at driving in a natural way when you're doing adaptive cruise control. There's actually like smart steering assist that you can drive along with. It's better than the RAV4s in that respect. So at least there's that silver lining that CRV missed out on the later infotainment tech because it came out before Accord and Odyssey, but because it came out after Pilot, it got better driving assistance because Pilot, Passport, basically all Pilot-based vehicles have that have the old stuff.
Yeah.
We had a Passport, I want to say January, December timeframe, if I recall. Zach, you might remember that. I don't know how good your memory is. Maybe it was different. I just remember driving it. It was cold out. So, that could have literally been 8 months of the year here in Michigan. But I actually would you guys mentioned the bloated looks of the CRV. I kind of like the CRV's looks a little bit better. I feel like the Passport, they're going for that kind of like rough and tough, like off-road, whatever look. And to me, I like that the CRV, to me, just feels in some ways more authentic. It's, it is what it is. It's kind of sort of more like what Honda is. Passport, maybe it's more of an identity, the name itself, Passport, gives you a sense, an idea of what the vehicle, attempts to stand for. But I've always liked the CRV. So I'm going to stay with that, I guess, if you will. Cool. So let's move along. This brings up an interesting fourth test car / broadcast studio. James, tell us about your Bimmer that you're broadcasting from.
Yeah, well, it is a 1998 BMW Z3. It is the 2.8 engine. So I have now owned this. I bought this in 2007. And at the time it had around 37,000 miles on it, and today it has 46,000 miles. As the car of an automotive journalist, the cars of automotive journalists don't usually move very often. They kind of get parked, and when I worked in an office every day, it kind of got neglected and collected dust. But today it gets to sit in my garage and actually gets to drive a lot more because it's free of LA traffic, and it has nice overcast skies that I can drive around with the top down and not get roasted by the sun. So it's the other thing is that it's so very simple. It was a pretty simple BMW for 1998, let alone cars today. So it's really nice to get into a car today, and it has a manual transmission for one, because virtually nothing does now, and it has just a regular radio faceplate and 3-knobbed air conditioning and just a plain old clock with 24-hour time on it and plain old gauges. And it's just like such a refreshing palate cleanser for after when you sit in cars today, and there's just so much going on, especially if you are in a car like this, like the new BMW Z4. I had it and drove them back to back, and you just sit in the Z4 and you're like, there's so much crap in this car. Like, why do I need all these gizmos for something that's ostensibly going to be a third, fourth car, a weekend toy? Not that many people are going to be commuting every day in their 2-seat Roadster. So it's just like a refreshing simplicity to it, and I find that I enjoy it more as the years go by. It's also really pretty. So I back it into the garage, even though it's annoying, because then I get to open the garage door and throw something in the recycling bin, and I get to go, oh, that's nice.
The acoustics are excellent. I'll give you credit there.
That's good. That's good. And also by opening it up, it has I've put the roof down a lot more, and it hasn't been sitting it sat in the sun a lot, and when that happens to certain German cars, they start to smell like crayons. Which is kind of, I'm sure if anyone owns an old Volkswagen or BMW, certain ones could smell like crayons. I've managed to get rid of that over the years, thankfully. But otherwise, knock on plastic here, I haven't really had any problems with it. I've driven it just enough to prevent it from decaying, but not so much that it has worn out in any kind of appreciable way. So just, yeah. So that's my car. I'm
impressed. It's something we've been kind of meaning to talk about, just because I like cars of that era and cars of that ilk. So it's good to kind of talk about it here. I feel like we need a picture of this to include in the post, maybe, for the podcast. So if you're listening, let's see if you must have one or two laying around, right, James? We can get in the post somewhere.
I do, but actually not as many as you'd think. You always think, oh yeah, like I'll have to go take pictures of the cool car I own, but no, you always seem to forget. I haven't done I've done beauty shots of a Nissan Sentra and a Volkswagen Passat, yeah. But every damn car I get through here, but no, not the car I actually own. But no, it's the I own it. So the story that I own it is because in 1995, the James Bond movie GoldenEye came out, and I was 12 years old, and that was like the movie that set me on the path to be a giant James Bond nerd, and that was the car in it, and that was the car I really wanted when I was 12 years old and for the next couple of years. And then in 2007, when I didn't need a car anymore because I was driving test cars, I was like, well, I'm going to sell the thing I have and save some money and just buy this to be my toy, the car I wanted when I was 12. Why not? I'm sure that is the story for most people. The cars that the old cars that they buy is something that they wanted at some point, or the old car that they once had but had to sell for this or that reason, possibly because it rusted away in Michigan. But otherwise, yeah, it's the Atlanta blue / James Bond blue, same interior color.
Nice.
I had the better engine. He had the Stinger missiles. Yeah.
Sounds pretty fun. I think it's a good backstory. And I mean, hey, now that seems like everything's locked down, you've got a fun convertible to roll around in, and go pick up your like approved necessary groceries and medicines and such. And kind of cathartic to do it in a car like that.
Or just go for a weekend drive. My wife and I have just done that the last couple of weeks. Actually, 2 weeks ago, we took her own car because she works from home and we hadn't been moved in a while. And I was worried. I was like, I've driven the Z3 more than I have her car. We're going to have to go for the leisurely weekend tour in our just regular car because it hasn't moved. I don't want it to, for the battery to die because it's a modern car. If your battery dies, there's a lot more settings and crap that you have to reset. Whereas this, nothing. the trip meter goes. Oh well.
The clock, your radio presets.
No, the
really?
wrist day. Oh yeah. That was a nice surprise. Oh wait, no, sorry. Radio presets fine. The clock does.
Yeah. Every single time the battery dies on my 2001 Integra, I have to redo everything on the radio. It's a bit of a nightmare. But no, I was now that we have all this time, I was just out on the driveway. I recently actually got my Integra completely repainted, and I was like, hey, this is a great time to go get some sealer and some wax on it, and just use this random time that all of a sudden I now have, and it's like the perfect opportunity at this point to just do stuff with your car if it needs something worked on, detailing, all that jazz. So
the other thing with kind of enjoying your fun car is that due to here in Oregon, we have basically a stay-in-place order. I don't know if it's literally called that, but we can't really go places that aren't out of necessity. However, the thing is, you can't go places. You can't get out of your car and talk to people. There's like, believe me, I looked at the legal language here. There's nothing that says you can't drive in like a loop and just come home. So that's kind of what we do anyway. We all just go for a drive. And so it's one of the things you can do, especially now. There is less traffic out there. So, you have to be a little more careful for cyclists. Cyclists on mountain roads are a little more frequent, but otherwise, not that bad in that respect.
I did the same thing last weekend, and I saw the same as you. The walkers and the cyclists were out on my main driving roads like none other. It was unreal, and there was still some traffic too. I still ended up having to pull over and wait for people to drive on by. People are actually they're driving even slower than normal, it seems. I
don't think that's part of the prescribed. I actually am pretty annoyed at all the people walking their dogs because we live near a park and there's this kind of like forest you can go into to get in the park. So I essentially have people walking through my yard to get into the park to get through the forest. And it's like, hey, get off. Literally, I'm the old guy who's saying, get off my lawn. Like, there's a fence, but it's still like, come on, and the yard's big enough that everybody's keeping their 6 foot distance. But then when you let the dog out, that becomes a problem because no matter what seems to happen, no matter what laws come down, people still think it's okay to pet your dog. And it's like, don't touch my dog. I don't want your coronavirus on my dog. So, these are the issues you're dealing with, I guess. And many people have much greater problems. I say this in jest, but stop petting my dog. Let's move along to coronavirus. Just updates.
Speak of the devil.
Right. There's so much going on right now that rather than trying to like dig deep into any one issue, certainly hope, all you Autoblog listeners are staying safe out there and staying healthy. And hopefully you're listening to the podcast, maybe as you have some extra time or something. But one thing that I think is interesting is that obviously you're going to see a big probably dip in car buying in the next coming months, just because people are, not going to be going to the dealerships as much. They're going to be looking for different ways to do it, looking for different ways to, just frankly exist. And, the car buying, process is part of that. So I'm kind of curious what you guys think when we're on the other side of this, and maybe while it's going on, how does this change the way you shop for a car? I mean, Cadillac's working on what's essentially a virtual showroom where you can like sign in. I think it's like a Zoom or Google Meets kind of thing and talk to somebody. I mean, I like this idea. I'm not sure it would work for every brand or even every car, but stuff like this could be more, I think, more prevalent, more convenient for a lot of people. There's certainly that stigma for some folks of going into a dealership. They just don't want to do it. I think this could be an opportunity. Anytime something like the world is just totally upended, usually we come out of it with totally different ideas. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, the state dealer laws could also run afoul of that, because Texas and does Michigan, like, can you buy a Tesla in Michigan?
Nope. You actually, yeah.
Yeah, so
you
I
have
think
to pick
you'd
it up
be
in Cleveland.
Yeah, you'd be running into stuff like that, but I guess depends on how badly you need a car. Like, are people really gonna? It still seems, well, for one, if you have nowhere to go, like, what?
Yeah, there's that.
But even just so once you can go places, I don't know if it'll really keep people from doing. But on the other hand, maybe it'll encourage people to make more appointments at car dealerships and have it ready for them, and like just spend less time at the dealer, which is what I recommend people doing anyway.
Right.
Always make an appointment and tell them exactly what you want to see, and don't wait around and hope for someone to walk up to you. Maybe it'll refine the buying process a little more, especially if people get used to ordering anything, and picking it up in a store. So whether it's at Kroger and doing it, or at the Ford dealer, maybe that'll become a little more prevalent, because certainly these are things that exist now. I mean, you can buy a car and have them deliver it to your house and do all of the paperwork at your house. That is something you can do right now. And you could do it 2 years ago. So perhaps this will let people be more aware of that fact, because unlike, car dealers are going to be even more eager to bend over backwards to try and, get things going again. So that's the kind of thing that, even if it's not strictly like click button for Ford Escape here on my computer, car comes to me, it's not that easy. Perhaps there are more incremental steps that might become more widespread as a result of this.
I think that, there's clearly a chunk of the population is pretty cool with buying a car online. We've seen hundreds of thousands of Teslas being bought online at this point, and those are being delivered. I really don't know what the numbers are for like a regular manufacturer, not Tesla, buying a car online and having it delivered. But I mean, I'm still the kind of person that wants to go to the dealer, test drive a car, and test drive it multiple times even. One 15-minute drive doesn't exactly let me know that I want to buy this car or not. I mean, and frankly, I just, at this point, if I can't go to a dealer and drive said car, I wouldn't buy that new car. I wouldn't drop 40, 50, however many thousands of dollars on it. If I'm forced to, read some reviews online and do some online shopping. But I mean, I imagine that a certain percentage of the population is okay doing that. I met plenty of people that question, why do I need to go drive this car? And I always tell everybody, go take the car for a test drive before you actually buy it. Go sit in it, go touch everything, go play with all the technology, see if you fit correctly in it. There are all these things that you miss out on if you're just going to hit buy online like we do with some headphones or something on Amazon. So,
well, yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right, because even like another big purchase, say like a television, right? Well, I can read all the reviews and they say this is a great television. I can put it in my house, and there's not a lot of other factors that might change why it wouldn't work for me. But like, okay, we test drive. Let's just say you do not care, nor will you ever care about the differences in driving dynamics. Great, okay, fine. But let's say you go out and everybody on Earth says the Honda Accord is the greatest midsize sedan. That's all the ratings are saying. Everybody should buy a Honda Accord. Okay, let's say you read that. Great. Here's the thing. You could go there and find out that, ouch, this seat hurts me. And now I've spent $25,000 on a car, that seat hurts me. Great. Like that's something that you wouldn't know if you didn't even just go and check out. You mentioned infotainment. I can't figure out how to change the radio. My mother has a lovely car. She's owned it for 3 years, still can barely use the infotainment system. And having driven that car, I kind of know it's kind of the car, not just her. So just things like that. You know, you gotta try bring your child's seat along and see if you can put it in the back seat without having for your wife to be jammed up against the dash, or with you having your knees up in your face. Like, these are the things you gotta check. And you gotta go to a dealer to that. And you just do. But even at the same time, though, maybe dealer models can change, because, you know, people will buy a television, let's say, online, but they've gone to Best Buy and seen it in person. So they've done that. So they've done the in-person shopping, even if they've pressed click online. And so maybe something like what Tesla has and other brands do as well, is like kind of things in malls to determine, you know, to let you get hands-on with them. Maybe that's a model that can start to change. Although you'd still have to go to a mall, and right now no one's going to do that. So, you know. Yeah.
Yep. Still have to go gather somewhere with people and talk to them and interact with them. There's no avoiding that. Yeah.
Well, see, what they need to do is do that BMW bubble car we had on the site this week.
There you go.
The 97 or 98 7 Series that someone's kept in a hermetically sealed bubble for the last 20 plus years and has like 40 or has like 4 miles on it. Just do that. Everybody be in a bubble, and then it will be fine. No
Get
problem.
some holographic salespeople.
Yes.
There you go.
Walk you through the features.
Holographic salespeople, yeah. I mean,
make it look like Tupac, because I think that's what all the holograms are at this point, right? Mostly Tupac.
All of them are Tupac. You're right.
That's okay. I found some very old. I don't know what to do with that. Okay. So since we're talking about spending money online, should we spend some money? I guess, like in real life. Okay. All right. So this is a good one. This actually came in via James on his own Twitter handle. Alfred on Twitter. We'll go, that's his formal name, rank, and serial number. Alfred on Twitter. Hey, James, given the long stretch of isolation ahead, boy, that sounds rough when you put it that way, was thinking of buying a used convertible. It's pretty bleak. Just for long weekend drives with our dog. Sounds pretty good. It's got to be a 4-seater, no more than $7,000 to $8,000. Doesn't want to spend a ton on maintenance, just a weekend runabout. Any suggestions? Well, a $7,000 to $8,000 used convertible.
And the maintenance thing.
That seems like a this or that kind of thing. And basically all of the ones I've been looking at here, yeah, I don't think they're going to be like super, like you'll be able to drive them on weekends probably, but yeah. All right, James, you're first up. This came in via you. Take first crack at it.
Well, okay, so, I mean, I was looking around, and the thing you're going to find a lot of Mustangs in that price range, but you're either going to be looking at, like, if you want a V8, you're going to do, like, the last Fox body, and no. I haven't driven a convertible of that, but I drove the coupe, and that thing was like a wiggly, jiggly bean. That was not a good car. You can get the retro one, but then that's a V6. So that's a possibility, but unlike the V6s that came much later, that V6 has like 210 horsepower and is kind of a dog. It earned its poor reputation. I found some nice BMWs, the 3 Series, be it the one from the 90s or the one that came after in the thousands. You can get some in that price range, low miles or, reasonably low miles. And I can attest that I own a BMW of that era. And if if it's in good condition when you get it and you don't drive it that much, if it's just a weekend toy, this has not been an expensive car. Once again, knock on the premium package wood. It hasn't been that. It has been totally fine for me. So if you get it like a 328, may be able to find one with a manual. Hopefully, they're in pretty good condition. But to throw out the curveball, how about a Saab 9.3 convertible? Because in terms of newness and niceness, that would be it right there. Kind of like 08, 09. It's a perfectly pleasant car, and they still make parts for them, and there's still Saab places around. We have one here in Portland, for instance, because of course we do. But yeah, that would be my oddball choice because it's kind of different. It's weird, so it's interesting. It was pretty good to drive. At least the sedan and wagon version were. I'm just kind of assuming minus some structural rigidity, the convertible would also be. So yeah, that's my oddball choice. Saab 9.3.
So I'll see your Saab 9.3 and raise you a used 2004 Volvo C70.
Yes.
With about 64,000 miles on it. It's a beautiful shade of like sky baby blue. $7,000, available locally. I spent way too much time going through the different listings in this area. So there's one of those that I think that's interesting. I wouldn't get that, but it's an interesting. Year? It's an '04 actually.
Is that the hardtop one?
Let me click on it. I believe it is.
Or is that the S70 version?
Let me see here. I had it, then I lost it. I was looking at 2 of them. So let me see which one I was looking at for $7,000. So that's kind of the oddball one for me anyway. Of course, now my online listings.
An 04 C70 was the original one. That would be... I had a friend... Actually, I've known multiple people who've owned that car. I had a friend of mine.
Okay.
That thing... and I say this sitting in a car with very poor structural rigidity. That car did not have it. That car was kind of worse. That thing, you'd go over like a railroad track and every single piece would just start to jiggle and bounce around. So losing the roof in a Volvo was not the greatest thing you could do. So because I was looking at those as well. The one that came after it, the one with the folding hardtop, was a vastly superior car.
It's funny. I remember the folding hardtop because I think we had a long-term one of those at Auto Week, probably around 08 or 09. And I remember just the folding hardtop blew my mind. I was like, it just, I was still fairly new into press cars at that point. I'm like, this thing is amazing. Yeah. So that would not be my choice, just for the record. But
yeah,
since we're going down oddball choices, I'll throw that one out there. And then I will give you my choice, since I'm just rambling here. I would go with, let me go back, the online. That's just a problem with shopping for a car online, is if your internet slows down, it's hard to shop for a car online. Makes you want to go to the dealer, I guess. I found a 96 BMW 328i for about just a little under $8,000. It's a beautiful shade of burgundy, which looks pretty nice. I like it. And it's got it's got about 85,000 miles on it, which I would deal with that. I mean, that's fine for a weekend thing. Condition looks pretty good. Cars like this I've seen for sale just in my neighborhood, and I'm like, oh geez. At one point, I don't know what happened, if the car got like hit on the street or something, but it was kind of crumpled up, and the guy dropped the price to like $1 or $2 or $3 grand, something like almost obscenely low. And I was kind of like, what's going on there? Why did you just drop this car so cheap? And I was walking my dog, and the dog just was kind of sniffing the car. And I don't know, all these things just seemed to line up and say, don't buy that car. Something suspicious about it. But I've always liked BMWs of that era. I think it's a really clean, beautiful design. That's where I would land. I think for me, it would be fun to drive around on weekends, maybe throw the golf clubs in, and, just have some lighthearted fun. This one, I will say, this is an automatic, so there's that, but the interior is straight up gorgeous. It's very well preserved, or at least very well cleaned and all that good stuff. So that's what I do. I would look at a used mid-90s BMW 3 Series convertible. Over to you, Zach.
So I thought it was really funny that your mind also went to Saab, James, because I was thinking Saab, but slightly older. I was looking at the Saab 900 turbo convertible. So looking at like late 80s, early 90s, that design, the first gen body with the convertible. If you don't care about, like ultimate speed, amazing handling, just a great highway cruiser. There are so many testimonials online to this car's great reliability. I cannot personally attest to that, but it's I think it's one of the coolest looking cars that came out of that era, and four seats in that convertible. So yeah, that's my weird choice. And then I have one that's slightly different. Buy an old Jeep Wrangler. Nice
curveball. That's more of a screwball.
Just take the soft top off when you want to, and it's nice. And you can cruise on the highway. You can go off roading. You can just do whatever the heck you want. You can buy just basically the nicest one that you can get your hands on for about $8,000, which Wranglers hold their value really well. So you're definitely going to be looking at an older model, but you can still get one that isn't all rusted out, and a decent looking Wrangler for that price, assuming you want to go off road. If your preference is for something remarkably cool, stylish, and retro, I say the Saab. If you want that any terrain capability, then do the Wrangler and take the top off. And those are my two top suggestions.
I feel like this is a question we could literally go over almost every couple of weeks, because I feel like this is a segment that's so much fun. Right now you could get a lot of interesting vehicles kind of in that price range. So yeah, that's a fun one. I like this one. So
that's probably about what I would
agree.
Be, 7 to 10. If I wanted to, get another thing, that's probably what I would be looking at. And yeah, you could. I mean, you're priced out of a certain in that price range. You can find some interesting things. At least interesting.
None of them will be super
awesome,
fast or anything.
But like the 4-cylinder Z3. No, that has 133 horsepower or something, and no, thank you. But there are other. But you're kind of in the ballpark there of lots of interesting, fun cars, and you do need to you have to make sure you get you have to do your homework a little more. Make sure you have a trusted mechanic to take a look at it beforehand. Know the vehicle history. Look over it really closely. Take it for a drive. Anything that doesn't seem right probably isn't.
This is one you don't want to buy virtually, unless you want to just take $7,000 to $8,000 and light it on fire. Yeah, another interesting one I just thought of is one of those old Alfa Romeo Spiders. You're going to go back a little bit farther. Your reliability is going to be awful. But if you want a beautiful car, I mean, it'll be interesting, and you'll be supporting your local small business. That's for sure. With all of the quality and reliability issues on that thing. So, yeah. Any other thoughts, guys?
Your single Alfa Romeo could keep the one mechanic in business all year long.
You're his
likely.
401k is what you are.
You are his kid's tuition. You are all of it.
Straight cash, which is better than the stock market. So there you go. I mean,
yeah. I mean, you can buy a lot of Miata for that price too.
Yeah,
if
that's true.
you're willing to forego those rear two seats.
Back seat. But the back seat, I can see where he's coming from though, because I have a 2-seat convertible, and I can tell even just with 2 dogs, we drive this car more if we could just we can't bring the dogs with us. And if it just had like a 911's vestigial seats, we could. The same like a Mustang. Mustang's little rinky-dink back seats, the new one, perfect for dogs. They're like, well, small ones at least, like I have. They're the size of a dog bed. They love that car. So like having the little back seat really does make a difference when you're looking for that. But it does make it harder to find a car. Because
it does.
Most of them are like, the price and the maintenance thing. Because, you can find one that'll be good, and, that like a BMW or some of the cars we suggested. But otherwise, if you want to look for something that, that's going to be reliable, you're looking at like a Toyota Solara. Yuck.
Ugh.
That car is,
Ugh.
no, that was not good. And honestly, that's kind of it. They just... Not many 4-seat convertibles have been made in the last 25 years, let alone the last 5.
You can get a 09 Ford Mustang for about $8,000. As I'm going through some listings here, I'm seeing one with just under 6 figures on the clock. I don't know. I would assume that
V6.
Yeah, V6.
Yeah.
So that's going to be kind of a pretty strangled V6 too. But I mean, you get the back seat. Depending on where you live, you would probably have plenty. I mean, there's Ford dealers everywhere, so that wouldn't be an issue. I don't know. I've driven a lot of Mustangs. For me, I'd probably want to go with something a little bit different, a little weirder in this segment. Mustangs are great, but for me, if I was going to go down the Mustang road and ride that horse, I'll use that terrible pun, I'd go with something newer probably. So.
Yeah, and I kind of like the, in 10, when Mustang got the heavy refresh in 2010. But the interior just got a little nicer, and it just got that much better. That's when I'd start my Mustang search, or I guess restart it, because I'd be fine until like 70 or so, and then I'd take a couple of decades off.
All right. Well, let's hope the economy and hope everybody's health returns, and we're not all taking a couple of decades off. And I guess we'll just leave it there. Fun talking cars with you guys from your bunker down locations. Stay healthy. And to all of you listening, please stay healthy, stay safe, and we will see you next week. Take care.